Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So today's upload, as you can tell by the title of this video, is going to be my Weather Channel's winter forecast 2019-2020. And again, this is not just a copy or just, showing you what exactly they're showing and then just leaving it at that. I'm going to be comparing it to my winter forecast and seeing how they did it in the years past and just basically kind of grading them, and I guess just comparing it to mine. It's just, I did it for AccuWeather and as well as a Farmer's Almanac, and people seem to like those videos, so I will continue doing so. Before we get into the video, guys, I have one question. Please consider becoming a Patreon. I had a Patreon for a really long time. It was mainly made when my YouTube channel got demonetized back in March. I don't know if you were even around. I had around 6,000 subscribers. So it was much less than I have now, half as much. And Patreon was then made so, it could be supported, so people could support this channel, give like $1 or $2 or $5, depending on how much you want. And it's paid monthly, but you could leave anytime you want. And it's just a great way to support this channel, as this is free to you. This program is free. This program I do with the weather. And if you'd like to support this channel out of your pockets, if you'd want to, I'm not, this is just completely optional. But if you're willing to do that, consider becoming a Patreon. The link is in the description box below, and all you have to do is set up an account, and I think you'll be set. So thank you so much for doing that. So let's look at also, don't forget to subscribe. That's also really important, and like the video, as that gets my video out to more people, and more people seem to really watch it and enjoy it then. So also you can share the video as well. So let's just get into this. This is their temperature outlook. This was actually released quite a bit ago, I think in September, almost not exactly a month, but about half a month ago was released, and you could see that the temperature outlook for October through December is really the cool weather centered across the eastern and northern central U.S. And I think that is fairly accurate. I would actually move a little bit of this chillier air a little bit further out here, and maybe not so much in the northeast, but maybe a little bit more towards the south. But that's theirs. They showing above average for the southwest. We agree about that as well. And I still think that this area of near slightly below average is still, or above average is still a little bit too generous. I don't think it will be above average for this expanse of an area. I mean, you can see there's a bunch of states in the orange here. I think it will be much chillier, but let's see what their month-by-month breakdown is. So October, you could see they have below average temperatures for Minnesota, Wisconsin, UP, Michigan, North Dakota. And I agree with that, but I think it'll be a little bit more, I think it'll be much below average for those areas. Where it says near slightly below average, I think it'll be below average. And I would extend the cold really honestly into the south. Looking at the latest model runs, I made a video about it today, and this is getting pre-recorded on the 16th, and I made a video about on the 16th about the possible Arctic blast to come through, and some of the models are really hinting at some very chilly air coming through, some very cold air, so that would be very interesting to see what exactly happens. And there are many, like even the European and GFS are agreeing, which again rarely happens. They're showing some very cold air, even getting as far south as Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. So that is, that, but I'd also keep the blue up here and into maybe parts of the northeast as well, excluding maybe parts of the extreme northeast, as some of the northeasters are going to be tracking up the coast, could bring in quite a bit of cooler air for these areas, and that could be that could warm things up a little bit. But I do think above average will be predominant for these areas. I would not really include it for these areas as much. I just don't agree with that based on looking at the models for October, at least, that is. Even though the whole month as a whole may come out a little bit warmer in the south, because we just really had a really warm start. But from now on, it seems, if you're watching this and it's October 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, whatever day it may be, if you're living in the south, it most likely will be cooler than average for a good portion of it. Now let's look at their November outlook. You can see that it's expanded down to the south. Very, very, I think that's actually accurate. I think that the parts of the south will be able to get some of that chilly air as well, just like shown right here. But look what they have across the southwest, much above average, and I think it'll be above average. I don't know if it'll be much above average, because this is not their confidence. This is kind of the magnitude of how above average it is. I think it'll be above average, not ridiculously though, but I think it'll be pretty warm. But they're I guess going with pretty generous, much above average for including the northwest, which I think is not true. I think November similar to last year. We have to see what exactly pans out. But if the if the pattern sets up similar to what we had last year, then I mean this good chunk of the country will be below average. And again, they're getting on with that, with at least showing the eastern half being chilly. But over here, the northwest, they're showing above average. I'm not buying that yet. I think it could be easily a very chilly November for them as well. So we'll have to see what exactly happens. But that's what they have for November. And this is December. Now this is actually some of these you may be looking at this and being like, whoa, way too warm biased. I'm willing to accept this as of now, because if the winter is similar to what we had in 2013, 2014, 2014, sorry about that, 2015, and into last year, then some of the winters were, those winters, I meant to say, had really warm Decembers, or just slightly or above average for a good portion of the country, excluding a certain portion of the country, which in this case the Weather Channel thinks will be the southeast. I think that December this year may not be too awfully cold. I think November will be chilly. But the thing is, guys, we first have to go through November, because if November ends up being cold, then most likely December will end up being warmer. If November ends up being warmer, then December most likely will end up being colder. So usually that's how it works. And usually if October is very chilly, then sometimes the chances for December are a little bit, if October is chilly, then December can be chilly as well. But that's not always the case. Last year we had a pretty chilly end to October as well, which led into an even colder November. So I think December of this year is a big question mark, but I'm leaning towards a little bit of above average for more of the country, compared to the whole winter. I think January, February, March may be really cold along with November, but December may be that 1 month where it's kind of like, like a break and not too awfully cold, which will be good. Kind of a relief. So I think that we're agreeing on many aspects. You could see my winter forecast was basically there's a lot of parts to it, but my highlights basically round up to being cold across these locations, snowy across the northeast. So the Weather Channel had cold across this location, I guess, for the whole October through December, which is similar to mine. Mine's a little bit more aggressive. For the northwest, I have possible cold. The Weather Channel has the warm extending for these locations, kind of like a big contrast between the warm and the cold. We'll see how that goes. And you can see for the southeast, I have wet, while they have just warm. They didn't have really a precip outlook. So in many aspects, our forecast actually agrees. So that's actually always a good thing, because the more agreement we have in our forecast, usually the more accurate it could be. Or we're looking, we're kind of on the same page, which is actually a beneficial thing, because usually it's really tough to make a forecast when, like, I remember there was one year, 2016, 2017, I think that was a year, I think it was 2017, 2018, yeah. NOAA was showing warm for the north and cool for the south, and I was showing cold for the north, cool and warm for the south. It was like the exact opposite of what they were showing. I ended up being a little bit more right, which wasn't actually too surprising, because there was a lot of indications pointing towards that. But it was kind of like that winter was just tough to predict. I remember that was like one of the tougher ones. It was a complete flop for NOAA. It was semi-flop for me. I was a little bit closer, but still not too accurate. This winter, this is probably the most confident I've ever been in making my forecast for the past like 5-6 years. I'm pretty darn confident about what's gonna come. I think nor'easters and cold will be across the northeast, so that's that's just gonna be it. And it's good that the Weather Channel agrees with me on that, and I think NOAA, which will come out in a couple of days, will be agreeing as well. This is my snowfall outlook. This is kind of where I think snow will be above average. Just a quick little look. I guess there's no comparison here. The Weather Channel didn't have their snowfall outlook. They didn't have anything with precip, but that's just wanted to show you. This is where I think the coldest conditions will lie across the winter. And if I were to adjust this now, like up to this current day, this was a couple of weeks ago, I would extend the cold a little bit further to the south, and maybe a little bit away from the northeast, and let's tad bit away from the extreme northwest, but definitely a little bit further down into the south, as that's what things are starting to kind of look like what we had last year, and that's what occurred last year as well. I kind of want to now look into their last year's forecast and compare it to actually what happens. And this is their temperature outlook for the month of December. And you can see they had above average for basically majority of the country, excluding the south. and I'm not gonna pull up a temperature graph of what was last year, because basically I can explain to you. This was actually pretty right on. There was slightly above average, or at least above average, especially towards the north, and the slightly cooler was reserved towards the southern and eastern U.S. So that's basically what they had. So they did a pretty good job with that. So yeah, I agree with that, you know, they did a good job on December last year. Let's move on to a different month. November, they completely butchered it, on the other hand. I mean, it was one of the coldest months of the winter, and you could see this cold was about, this location was very cold. This was like completely non-existent, and in Northwest, I guess they got right, if you will, but I think it was pretty chilly as well, if I recall the graph that I made a couple days ago. Kind of from the NOAA composite. So November was a complete butcher of last year, and I think this year they kind of saw that, you know, what happened last year, and they kind of adjusted to it, leading to them showing a cool November. And let's see, October, they actually got pretty okay, but it would look better if they basically switch these two graphs, you know, this 2 months, if this was October and this was November, because October was chilly for some locations, like the north right here was a little bit chilly, but a good portion of the south was still kind of warmer. And that's what they kind of had here, but it was a little bit too aggressive, and the northwest was warmer than average, so that's what they had. But overall, you know, it wasn't bad. And you know, I agree with the Weather Channel on many things this time around, which is pretty surprising, as usually we have different opinions, fairly differing opinions, as most forecasts do. But this time around, you know, I could say for once that we agree, so that is definitely a good thing. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, hopefully you learned something new, and I'll catch you all guys on the next episode. See ya. Bye.